I know. There are mornings when you wake up and wonder whether you're taking proper care of your body. I understand that feeling because I've been there too. After 40 years as a cardiologist here in the United States, I've met far too many people like us, people who want to live healthily but sometimes unknowingly harm themselves. Do you know what breaks my heart the most is when I sit in my clinic looking into the eyes of people my age. They come to see me not because they don't care about their health, but precisely because they care too much. They exercise, they try hard, they do everything they think is good, but then their hearts end up bearing burdens they shouldn't. Today I want to sit down here, like two friends sharing afternoon tea, and share with you what I've learned through the years. Not to lecture, but simply to share stories that have made me reflect deeply on how we treat our aging hearts. The first story, about Margaret and overexertion. I still remember Margaret's story vividly. A 67-year-old woman living in suburban Chicago. She came to see me on an autumn afternoon when the leaves had begun to turn golden. Her hands trembled as she told me about her chest pains. The times her heart would pound frantically, as if ready to burst after HIIT workouts. "Doctor, I just want to be healthy," she said with a shaky voice. "I heard everyone saying high-intensity training is great. My son also advised me to exercise so I wouldn't get weak." I remember sitting down beside her, slowly, gently, and looking into her worried eyes. I saw there not just fear of illness, but also the fear of becoming a burden, the fear of no longer being strong enough to care for herself. "Margaret," I said, "your heart has been working tirelessly for 67 years. It has carried you through years of raising children, managing household duties, working and loving your family. Now, it's not the same as when you were 27, and that's not a bad thing." I explained to her that intense workouts, those moments of breathlessness, hearts pounding like drums, these aren't the challenges an aging heart needs. A heart at 67 needs care like an ancient garden, not aggressive cutting, but gentle, persistent watering. I told her about research, about how high-intensity exercises can shock cardiovascular systems that have aged. When we force our hearts to beat rapidly and suddenly, when we create intense stress, it's like waking a sleeping animal with loud roars. "But I don't want to get weak," Margaret whispered. "Dear," I said, walking in the park each morning, practicing Tai Chi by the lake, gentle swimming. These may seem simple, but they nourish the heart without exhausting it. True strength isn't the ability to endure pain. It's the ability to listen to your body and give it what it needs. The following month, Margaret returned to see me, and this time her eyes brightened. She told me she had started walking in the nearby park, slowly, enjoying the fresh morning air. She felt her heart was more peaceful. And, most importantly, she felt she was caring for herself, rather than punishing herself. Margaret is still healthy today, and she learned that self-care isn't a battle, but tenderness. The second story, Robert and the lesson about silent pressure. One February morning, when snow still blanketed Chicago's streets, Robert, a 72-year-old retiree, was brought to the emergency room unconscious by his son. He had collapsed at the local gym while attempting sit-ups. When he regained consciousness, I saw confusion in his eyes, like a child lost in the forest. "I just wanted to be strong enough to play with my grandchildren, doctor," he said with a trembling voice. "I'm afraid I'll become a burden to my family." I sat down beside his hospital bed and felt pain, not just from his body, but from his spirit. The pain of a man who had once been the family's pillar, now facing the reality that his body was changing. "Robert," I said, "I understand what you want. I also have grandchildren. And I also want to be able to race with them, lift them high, but I need to tell you what happened to your body." I gently explained that when we overexert ourselves, especially with exercises like sit-ups or heavy weightlifting, the body creates internal pressure. This pressure doesn't just affect the abdominal muscles. It also presses on the heart, lungs, and entire circulatory system. Imagine, I said, like trying to squeeze a balloon. At first it might hold, but if you squeeze too hard, too suddenly, it will burst. I told him about other patients I had treated, people who had suffered heart attacks, strokes, or arrhythmias from trying to exercise like young people, not because they weren't strong enough, but because they didn't understand that a 70-year-old body needs a different approach. "But how can I be strong enough to play with my grandchildren?" he asked. I smiled and said, "Do you know, there are ways to build strength without harming your body. Resistance bands, for instance. They allow you to exercise at appropriate intensity, adjustable to your ability, slow, controlled movements. They build real strength, not false strength." I also told him about another patient, William, 75, who had given up the gym for yoga and swimming. He can now carry his grandchildren, play with them in the garden, and, most importantly, he no longer worries about his heart. The following month, Robert returned to see me, but this time he came to thank me. He told me he had started using resistance bands at home, doing gentle but effective exercises. He could play with his grandchildren, not by proving his strength, but by being present, healthy, and peaceful. I realized, he said, the grandchildren don't need a superhero grandfather, they just need a grandfather who's always there. The third story, when weather becomes the enemy. I'll never forget that January morning when the temperature dropped to 5 degrees and I received an emergency call from the hospital. A 68-year-old woman had collapsed on the sidewalk while walking for exercise. When I arrived at the hospital, I met Helen, a resilient woman who had been accustomed to walking every morning for 20 years. "I don't understand," she told me. "I dressed warmly enough. I prepared thoroughly." I sat beside her hospital bed and gently explained something many of us don't know. Bodies over 60 no longer regulate temperature like they did when young. In cold weather, blood vessels constrict to keep internal organs warm. But this also means blood pressure rises and the heart must work harder. "Helen," I said, "your heart faced a double challenge. It had to pump blood for physical activity while fighting the cold. That's too heavy a burden." I told her about studies showing that heart attack rates increase on cold days. Not because people exercise less, but because they continue old habits without adapting to weather conditions. "What about hot days?" she asked. I sighed and shared. Equally dangerous. In hot weather, the body must cool itself by dilating blood vessels and sweating. The heart must beat faster to pump blood to the skin for heat dissipation. Meanwhile, we lose water faster than we think. And dehydration in elderly people can lead to serious consequences. I told her about Mr. Martinez, 73, who fell into a coma from heat shock after trying to jog on a 100-degree day. He just wanted to maintain his routine, but sometimes routines need adjustment. "So I should give up exercise?" Helen asked sadly. "No, dear," I smiled. "You just need to learn to exercise smarter. On cold days, exercise indoors. It could be yoga, stretching, or even just walking in a shopping mall. On hot days, exercise early morning or late evening when temperatures are milder, and always carry water." I also suggested exercises she could do at home, from simple movements with a chair to breathing exercises that enhance blood circulation. "Location isn't important," I said. "Persistence and safety are." Helen is now 73, and she still exercises regularly. But she learned to listen to the weather, listen to her body, and adjust activities accordingly. She told me, "I realized that wisdom isn't stubbornness, it's knowing how to adapt." The fourth story, Linda and movements the body can no longer keep up with. Linda, a 69-year-old woman with bright eyes and a warm smile. She had been a professional dancer in the 1970s, and to this day she maintained the characteristic grace of those who once knew how to control their bodies like instruments. But then one day, she came to see me with her arm in a sling, and tears in her eyes. She had fallen during an aerobics class at the community center, not because she wasn't flexible or strong enough, but because a sudden spinning movement had caused her to lose balance. "I feel like I've gotten old, doctor," she sobbed. "I used to dance on stage. I used to do things that now I can't. My body has betrayed me." I took her hand and felt trembling not just from pain, but from emotional anguish. It was the pain of someone who had once been confident in their abilities, now facing new limitations. "Linda," I said gently, "you're not old. You're just experiencing natural changes in your body, and understanding these changes isn't surrender, it's wisdom." I explained to her that as we age, our nervous system responds more slowly. Information from the inner ear, the organ that helps us maintain balance, is also no longer as sharp as before. When we perform sudden spinning movements, jumping, or quick direction changes, the body can't process information and adjust in time. Moreover, I continued, these sudden movements can also cause fluctuations in blood pressure and heart rhythm. You might feel dizzy, heart palpitations, or even faint. I told her about a study I had read about how professional ballet dancers, when aging, had to adjust their training methods. They didn't give up dancing, but they moved to slower, more controlled and safer movements. "So I have to give up dancing?" she asked. I smiled. "No, you can continue dancing, but in a new way. Do you know about Tai Chi? It's a form of slow dancing, flowing, continuous movements, but completely controlled. It helps improve balance, increases strength, and most importantly, it's safe for aging bodies." I also suggested water aerobics. Water will support your body, reduce impact on joints, but still allow you to feel the fluidity of movement. 6 months later, Linda returned to see me. And this time she was radiant. She told me she had started practicing Tai Chi in the park near her home, and she felt like she was dancing again, but in a completely new way. "I realized," she said, "beauty doesn't lie in speed, it lies in grace. And I'm still graceful. Just now, I'm graceful safely." The fifth story, sleepless nights due to wrong-timed exercise. There were too many evenings I sat in my clinic listening to patients tell me about restless nights, nights when sleep eluded them like a shy cat. And often, when I inquired further, I discovered they had a habit of exercising in the evening. Thomas, 71, was a typical case. He came to see me because of rapid heartbeats at night, times when he lay in bed feeling like his heart wanted to jump out. "I don't understand," he said. "I exercise regularly. I walk every evening after dinner. I thought this was good for my health." I sat down and listened to him describe his daily routine in detail. He woke up early, did housework, tended his garden, and around 7 p.m. after dinner, he would walk about 45 minutes around the neighborhood. "That sounds like a good habit," I said. "But I want to ask you, after walking, do you feel alert?" "Yes," he replied, "I feel energized. But then when I get to bed, I can't sleep." I nodded understandingly. This was a problem I saw frequently in elderly people. They had good intentions. They wanted to maintain physical activity, but they didn't realize that timing was equally important. "Thomas," I explained, "when we exercise, our body releases hormones like adrenaline and endorphins. These hormones help us feel alert and energetic, which is great during the day, but not suitable in the evening." I told him about circadian rhythms, how our bodies have an internal clock that regulates daily activities. In the evening, the body naturally begins to lower temperature and release melatonin to prepare for sleep. But if we exercise too late, we wake up the body just when it's preparing to rest. And this is especially important for elderly people, I continued, because sleep is when the heart rests and recovers. When we don't get enough sleep, blood pressure tends to rise, heart rhythm can become irregular, and the risk of cardiovascular disease increases. I shared with him studies showing that elderly people with insomnia have a 50% higher risk of heart disease than those who sleep adequately. Sleep, I said, isn't wasted time, it's healing time. So when should I exercise, he asked. Morning or early afternoon, I suggested. Exercising at these times will give you energy for the whole day while not affecting nighttime sleep. And in the evening, let that be time for your body to relax. Maybe reading, listening to music, or simply sitting quietly. A month later, Thomas returned and told me he had changed his routine. Instead of evening walks, he started waking up 30 minutes earlier to walk in the morning. I feel energized all day, he said, and at night I can sleep like a baby. The most important thing, listening to your body instead of fighting it. You know, throughout my years as a doctor, I've realized one thing: the people who live longest and healthiest aren't those who exercise the most or train the hardest. They're those who know how to listen to their bodies, know when to rest, when to be active, and most importantly, know how to love themselves. I remember a patient, Dorothy, 78. She came to see me not because she had any serious illness, but because she wanted to ask me about the secret to healthy living. She said, "Doctor, I see many friends my age constantly ill, but I'm still healthy. Am I doing anything special?" I looked at Dorothy, a petite woman with bright eyes and a gentle smile. I asked her about her daily habits, and what she told me made me reflect deeply. "I wake up at 6 a.m., she said, drink a glass of warm water, then stroll around the garden. I don't walk fast, just leisurely, admiring flowers, listening to birds. Then I come back and do some light yoga, simple movements I learned from a book," she continued. "In the afternoon, if the weather's nice, I go to the garden again, do a little gardening, water plants. If the weather's bad, I stay inside reading or knitting. I never force myself to do anything. If I feel tired, I rest. If I feel well, I'm more active." I nodded and said, "Dorothy, you've done something many people can't. You've listened to your body." That's the biggest lesson I want to share with you today. Our bodies, especially after 60, no longer function like rigid machines. They're like old friends, sometimes healthy, sometimes needing extra care. And like any friendship, the key is listening and understanding. There are days you wake up feeling energetic. That's when your body says, "Today we can be more active." There are days you feel tired, achy. And that's not a sign of laziness, but your body saying, "Today we need rest." I often tell my patients, become an explorer of your own body. Observe how you feel after each activity. If after exercising you feel refreshed and energized, that's a good sign. But if you feel exhausted, dizzy, or have chest pain, that's when your body is warning you. I know. You might be wondering, so what should I do instead? And I understand that concern. When we're advised to stop doing things we're accustomed to, it's natural to feel confused, even lost. But I want to tell you, there are many ways to care for your heart and body without pushing them to their limits. These methods may seem simple, but their effects are profoundly deep. Walking. This is the simplest gift you can give your heart. It doesn't need to be fast, doesn't need to be far. Just steady steps, feeling fresh air, and letting your mind relax. I have a patient, James, 74, who just walks 20 minutes around the neighborhood each morning. After 6 months, his blood pressure completely stabilized. Tai Chi. Many people think this is an old person's sport, and they're right, but in the most positive sense. Tai Chi teaches us how to move consciously, control breathing, and find balance. It's like moving meditation, caring for the body while nourishing the soul. Swimming and water aerobics. Water is the best friend of stiff joints and aching muscles. When in water, the body is supported, reducing pressure on the heart and joints. Susan, one of my patients, gave up the gym for water aerobics. She said, "I feel like I'm 20 again when I'm in water." Gentle yoga, not complex, difficult poses, but simple stretching movements, focusing on breathing and relaxation. Yoga teaches us how to listen to our bodies, how to breathe properly, and most importantly, how to release tension. Gardening. Don't underestimate this activity. Gardening is both gentle physical activity and brings mental joy. Bending down, standing up, moving gently, all are natural exercises for the body. Warning signs to watch for when your body is sending signals. Throughout my years of practice, I've learned something important. Our bodies are always talking to us. The question is whether we listen. There are signs I want you to pay special attention to. Not to be afraid, but to understand and respond timely. Chest pain or shortness of breath. This is never normal whether you're exercising or not. If you feel chest pain, difficulty breathing, or heaviness in your chest, stop immediately and rest. If this feeling doesn't subside after a few minutes, call your doctor. Dizziness or loss of balance. This could be a sign of sudden blood pressure changes or heart rhythm disorders. Don't try to push through this feeling. Sit down, drink water, and let your body stabilize. Unusual fatigue. If you feel exhausted after light activity or fatigue that lasts several days, this could be a sign that your heart is struggling. Rapid or irregular heartbeat, feeling your heart beating erratically too fast or like it's skipping a beat. These things need attention. I don't say these things to make you worry, but so you can become the best protector of yourself. Remember, paying attention to these signs isn't weakness, it's wisdom. I want to end with the story of William, a man I deeply respect. He first came to see me at 70 after experiencing a mild heart attack. He was a former athlete, had run marathons, exercised regularly at the gym, and was always proud of his physical fitness. "Doctor," he told me, "I can't accept that I'm getting weak. I used to run 26 miles without getting tired. Now, walking 1.2 miles makes me short of breath." I saw pain in his eyes, not just physical pain, but emotional pain. It was the pain of someone who had once been strong, now facing new limitations. "William," I said, "I understand your feelings, but I want to ask you a question. Do you think a 70-year-old tree is weaker than a 20-year-old tree?" He looked at me with confusion. "A 70-year-old tree," I continued, "may not be as tall or green as a 20-year-old tree, but it has deep roots, a sturdy trunk, and the ability to withstand storms that young trees don't have. It has experienced many seasons, many trials, and still exists. That's not weakness, but the strength of age." I explained to him that a 70-year-old body isn't a broken version of a 30-year-old body, but a different version with its own advantages and limitations. "What's important," I said, "isn't trying to go back to what you were, but learning to live well with what you have now." William listened, and I saw his expression gradually change. "So what should I do?" he asked. "Start over," I suggested, "but with a new mindset. Instead of running marathons, try walking in the park and enjoying the scenery. Instead of heavy weightlifting, try yoga or Tai Chi. Not because you're no longer strong, but because you're wise enough to choose what's best for yourself." 2 years later, William returned to see me, but this time he was radiant. He told me he had become a Tai Chi master in his community, teaching younger people. "I realized," he said, "true strength isn't the ability to conquer the body, but the ability to harmonize with it. If you've listened this far, I know you're someone who truly cares about your health, and that moves me deeply. Over 40 years, I've sat beside thousands of hospital beds. I've witnessed human fear, hope, and resilience when facing illness. But I've also witnessed something else miraculous. I've seen people like you, people who don't wait until illness strikes to start caring for themselves. You're choosing to prevent, protect, and love your body starting today. I want to tell you, caring for yourself at 60, 70, or older isn't a race against time. It's not about trying to prove you're still young. It's about accepting age with all the wisdom and grace it brings. Your heart, the heart that has accompanied you through so many years, has beaten tirelessly through moments of joy and sorrow, through nights staying up late, worrying about children, through exhausting workdays providing for family. It deserves care, not through harsh challenges, but through gentleness and understanding. Remember, walking slowly in the park when the weather is cool, practicing Tai Chi by a quiet lake, swimming gently if you have the opportunity, or simply stretching at home when weather isn't favorable. These things may not be as flashy as high-intensity workouts, but they nourish life instead of exhausting it. Old age isn't the enemy. It's the teacher. It teaches us about patience, about listening, about cherishing peaceful moments. And when we learn these lessons, we find that life is not only longer, but more beautiful, more meaningful. Remember, you're not alone in this journey. Millions of people your age are going through similar reflections, learning to care for themselves in new ways. And there are people like me, doctors who have devoted our lives to understanding the human body, always ready to listen and support you. If anything makes you worry about your heart health, if you feel chest pain, shortness of breath, dizziness, or any other symptoms, please see your doctor. We're here not to judge or frighten, but to listen, understand, and work with you to find the best way to care for your health. Finally, I want to leave you with a message from the depths of my heart. You deserve love, you deserve care, and you have the right to live a healthy, happy life, regardless of age. Your heart deserves protection, with all the gentleness, wisdom, and love that life can bring. Take care of yourself, and remember that every day you wake up healthy is a gift worth treasuring. I believe the days ahead will be filled with health, joy, and peace. Wishing you always good health and happiness.